In this episode,
Food addiction is like one of the only things that you can be addicted to that you can't just give up. Just because you look a certain way doesn't mean that you're healthy. You could eat cookies, pizza, chicken, like fried chicken all day, and as long as you are in a calorie deficit, you will lose weight. So when people instantly go back to the way they were eating, that is why people often gain all their weight back very quickly and more, because their threshold and their metabolism is lower.
Thank you for joining us on the podcast. Really
Of
happy and
course.
excited to have you here.
Likewise.
Super excited. To start from, I would like to ask you to introduce yourself, like what you're doing and who are you?
Well, I'm Noah Zimmerman. I am a gut health nutritionist and personal trainer located in Los Angeles, California. I got started on this career profession because a couple different reasons. When I was 14, I fractured my back, so I learned a lot about personal training, strength and conditioning, physical therapy. And then when I was a senior in high school, I played football in high school. And I suffered a really bad head injury called a subdural hematoma. Where I had to get, they had to drill into my head to release
oh my
the
god.
blood that was pooling. I was in the hospital for a couple months. Had to, take a lot of time off school and learn a lot more about, physical therapy and getting back into just using my body again. And then my senior year of university, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which is a inflammatory bowel disease. It's basically an autoimmune disease where my body attacks my colon. So that is really when I started getting into the nutrition side of things. And I had an amazing set of doctors and trainers and physical therapists throughout all these things that I've gone through. And I wanted to pay it forward. I learned there's a lot of value out there in just, moving your body correctly, eating the right things, and it can help manage so many different things. And I just want to be able to spread the message in a very digestible, clear-cut way that is, what's the word I'm looking for? Just easy for people to apply.
Yeah.
It's very applicable.
Yeah, it sounds very inspiring. Like I often heard that the best probably thing you can do in life is to solve your own problem in life, and then try to help people to solve the same problem, to get this
Well, it's
expertise
just
in solving your own things.
exactly. And I mean, there's so much more value hearing advice from somebody that's gone through what exactly that individual is going through as well. I think it's so much. I mean, it's not to say this is every fitness influencer model, but so many of them say like, just do this to achieve this body. And it's like, well, if you've had that type of body for your entire life, who are you to tell me how to go through that? Like, I was a large kid, but I don't think majority of my life I struggled with obesity, where it sounds like, Dimitra, you did. Whereas, if I have clients that have struggled with obesity, like in principle, I can help them. But say I had struggled with obesity too, they're going to feel a lot more connected. And just like a lot of my clients that I work with have ulcerative colitis, and they feel very listened to and seen when working with me because I've gone through exactly what they're going through.
Yeah.
And how do you actually describe like obesity? Like because the measurement, like the correlation between our height and our weight, like it's not the proper answer because we have our muscles. But how to understand, like, yeah, this person has obesity or doesn't?
Well, there's the BMI chart, body mass index. It's a little bit outdated because it doesn't account for body composition, the amount of muscle mass versus fat mass that you have. But it's fair to say that the world's largest bodybuilders aren't quite very healthy, aren't the peak of health either, because they have so much mass on their body. I don't know the actual definition of obesity, but I guess how I would define it is when it comes to someone that's struggling with, the conventional sense of obesity when we think of like a large fat mass. I think the general consensus I think it's a BMI of over 28. I could be totally wrong. Let me just double check. That's why I have my computer up. I want to make sure I don't misquote. It's 30 or higher.
30, yeah.
So,
okay.
But I mean, I think generally, if you have more than 30 BMI, even if it's like mostly muscle, you probably are having some kind of condition. I mean, if you listen to a lot of pro bodybuilders when they're at their heaviest, I mean, they'll say a sentence, take a deep breath and have to get through it. Like there's some, like their cardiovascular system, there is working overtime to make sure they're feeling good. So that, I mean, in principle, that's also why people that are generally just bigger have shorter lifespans. Because their body and organs are having to work extra hard. But the long-winded answer to your question is like how I would define obesity is just generally a BMI of over 28 or 30. In practicality, I think it's like the goal that I have with most of my clients is improving your quality of life. And I think if your size is greatly affecting your life and holding you back from doing things, whether it's like enjoying time with your friends and family, running around with your kids, being able to just get up and do simple tasks, I think that is where like it's more like how does your weight affect your quality of life? If it is affecting your quality of life, whether it's like health or just day to day, not to say that you're obese, but there is room to improve, and that's where you should be applying some of these things about like just moving your body, doing your best to eat better. Now, I mean, I'm going into a long-winded answer here, but like food addiction is a really difficult thing to get through because food addiction is like one of the only things that you can be addicted to that you can't just give up. Like if you're an alcoholic, you're like, I don't need, you can just say like, I'm never drinking again. Food, we all need food to survive. So it's a little bit more complicated. And there's some like, obviously, psychologists, mental health therapists that you'll have to work through to get through that. But anytime that your size is affecting and making your quality of life worse, I think is how I personally would define obesity.
Yeah. And talking about obesity, I just want to ask, we usually understand obesity by looking at the person and see how she or he looks, right? But let's say there is some, let's say your liver covered with fat, and you might look fit and not obese, but because of your nutrition habits, your inner organs might be covered with fat, and there is such thing.
Yeah, so there is subcutaneous fat, which is the fat that is like right underneath your skin, and then there's visceral adipose tissue, which is the fat that surrounds our organs. So subcutaneous is just like right below the skin, basically. Visceral adipose tissue, VAT, is like the bad fat that surrounds your organs that a lot of people that develop cardiovascular disease or even have obesity have. But it is very possible to look fit and have a high level of VAT. That will, affect your health down the line. So you can't, I mean, that's also another thing is that just because you look a certain way doesn't mean that you're healthy. And I think that there's a lot of misconceptions that like if you have a six pack or you got big muscles, like you must be like optimizing your health, which is not the case. There's his name is a Dr. MD. He's got a really big platform. I think his name is Mike Vatachowski. I was listening to a podcast that he was on, and he was talking about how like optimal is not best. Like going too far in either direction is bad. Like there's always going to be some kind of side effect if you try to biohack and really optimize your health. Like optimum isn't best. Best is right in the middle. So, wow, I lost my train of thought. I can really just talk and lose myself.
All good.
I forget where I was going with that. But
so we're talking about fat, like
yes, but
organs.
yes, you can be unhealthy and still look quote unquote good.
But there's a way to measure this fat inside your
body. Yeah, there is. So there's something called a DEXA scan where it does a full readout of your lean mass, fat mass, bone density, everything like that. You can also, I think that's really the only way to test your VAT, because you can do a water test to test your body fat composition, but I don't believe that there is a way via that method to distinguish the difference between just like fat, subcutaneous fat, and the different types of fat in your body. So I think that, to my knowledge, the only way to test to see that the fat surrounding your organs is through a DEXA scan.
Got it.
Thank you for sharing. And Noah, how do you think, what are the biggest misconceptions people have about fat loss?
That it's
Some
going
of
to
them.
be easy. Or that like they have to eat 1,200 calories a day, they have to starve themselves. It doesn't have to be as hard as people think.
Mhm.
I think you also have to recognize that there is different levels of difficulty when it comes to fat loss. Like, let's say you maybe you're obese, maybe you're just overweight, and you're trying to lose 10 to 20 pounds. Like, that's very doable. That's very achievable. There's going to be some sacrifices that you have to make, but largely it's not going to be that hard. It's just small little sacrifices and daily habits that you have to change. I think a lot of people have to like think they have to completely revamp their life, or that they have to follow a certain diet, that they can't have sweets or go out to family or have drinks. Like, there is a way to fit all the things. There is a way to have your cake and eat it too. It's
Yeah.
very possible, and I think a lot of people feel like they have to really fucking suffer and struggle to lose fat, and it's not the case. Now, if you want to get a six pack, yeah, you're going to suffer. It's going to suck. You're going to be tired. You're not going to be eating a lot. But for most people that just want to improve their health and lose some fat off their body, look a little better naked, it's not going to be that tough. It's the hardest part is just going to be changing some of the habits that got you to where you are. I think a lot of people feel like it's harder than it actually is. And I think also a lot of people will say, I've tried everything. I've tried everything. I've tried the keto diet. I've tried counting my calories. I've tried exercise. Nothing works. And most of the time it's like, well, how long did you try those things? I'm like, a month. And I'm like, that's not enough time at all. So I think a lot of people expect it to happen quickly. It doesn't happen
Yes.
quickly. It takes time.
And do you have clients who actually want to gain weight?
I myself haven't worked with anybody that wants that comes to me saying that they want to gain weight. A lot of people say they want to gain muscle. So
Yeah.
it's a tricky conversation, especially
Mhm.
because when you're telling someone to eat more, there's a lot of emotions that come into that, especially when they're like, I just want to look better. And I would love to work with someone that wants to put on some muscle mass. It would be a lot of fun. I think some of my clients have gotten to the point where they've lost enough body fat that they're like, okay, I'm interested in this approach of putting on weight. But there's a lot of emotions that come to play when you start to see that scale creep up.
Yes.
So even when, whether it's a weight gain journey, like muscle gaining journey, fat loss journey, I think looking at things and factors that aren't your weight are really important. So a lot of my clients that are, trying to lose fat will get on the scale and be like, no, it's been a month and I haven't lost any weight. And I'm like, okay, well, are you looking better in the mirror? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, are your clothes fitting differently? I'm like, yeah. I was like, so who cares what the scale says? I mean, the probable cause of that is that you've probably lost some fat and you've probably put on some muscle mass. So like fat mass takes up more volume than muscle mass. So you're smaller, but you look the same weight. Like, who cares?
Mhm.
Weight. I always try to tell people, like, your weight is literally just a number. It's just the amount of force that you're exerting on Earth. Your weight would be a different number if you're on the moon or in different levels of gravity. Like, it's simply a number that can be useful to a degree, but there are so many other factors that we need to be looking at when it comes to changing your appearance or fat loss or improving your health.
Yeah, totally. And talking about weight loss, do you think it's all about calories in, calories out?
Yes. I
Yeah.
mean, for weight loss specifically, yes. Like, if we want to get into like weight loss and improving your health, there's some other factors that you need to look at. But in principle, you could eat cookies, pizza, chicken, like fried chicken all day, and as long as you are in a calorie deficit, you will lose weight. So yes, when it comes to actually like lowering your weight, calories in, calories out is the only way. Only way.
Yeah, I'm talking about your work with your clients who want to lose weight. How important is calories counting, and why should people bother? And in what cases it's actually important to count calories, and when it doesn't make sense?
Calorie counting is tough. If it's something that you're not used to, weighing out your food, tracking everything is tough. I think for most people, I like to have them calorie count or track their food because I think it's really important for people to understand the amount of calories, macronutrients, and micronutrients that are in the foods that they eat. When you are just more aware of what you're eating, you're going to make better choices just automatically. Like I, when I start with new clients and there's always a week period where I'm like, I want you to track everything that you eat, but don't change anything. Because I don't want you to just immediately start trying to eat better because I'm seeing it for this first week. Like I need to know your eating habits going forward. Because if you already start eating better, like I can't help you to the best of my ability, and we can't get to maybe some potential root problems that have gotten you to where you are. So I think calorie counting, or at least tracking your foods, is really important to understand what is in your foods. A few of my clients are very anti-tracking, whether it's like they had parents that were really hypercritical and they developed some kind of awful relationship with food or because of that, or the scale. So a couple other methodologies that I'll use with my clients is like using their hand for serving sizes. So I'll say like you have X amount of palms of protein per day, and you have X amount of cupped hands of carbs. You have X amount of veggies, fist sizes that you want to eat today, and then you have X amount of like thumbs of fat. So there are many different methods to track. I think tracking is really important for everybody that is trying to lose weight, but calorie counting in itself is not super important if you are, I mean, for most people, if they just clean up their diet a little bit, if they just walk a little bit more, they're going to see results. They're going to get, even going to the gym once or twice a week, they're going to see results. They start cleaning up their diet. To a certain point, though, like if people are feeling like they've tried everything or they've hit a plateau and they're not seeing progress, that is really automatically when I would say we really need to understand exactly what you're putting into your body and how much of what you're putting in your body could be affecting your waistline. So long story short, I think everyone should go through it just to understand what they're putting in their body.
Do you have any examples from your experience? For example, when you were helping your client to lose weight, like they were working hard, but nothing was changing, like the weight didn't move. But then it turned out, okay, this person was eating that or that too much, and like then something changed drastically.
Yes, so like sauces. Sometimes people won't track sauces. So things like here in the States, like ketchup. People use a lot of ketchup. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or ranch or mayonnaise, or, these sauces they'll put on sandwiches and they'll squirt it on. And that could, while like 200 calories, 100 calories here and there is not a big deal. If you're using sauce in every meal, that could quickly add up to like 500 plus calories a day. And as soon as they recognize the quantity of how much they're using and how many calories it in, and just cutting those out can make a big change. Another thing is like caloric drinks. People drinking soda or adding cream or milk into their coffee or sugar into their coffee. Like people don't recognize how much that can add up. Hold on a sec. My dog just came in here.
He or she can say hi.
Yeah, he just walked out. And then, so I think like caloric, like beverages, usually when people are trying to really lose weight, I recommend to them that they just like don't drink caloric beverages, because that can just like very quickly cut out a large portion of calories that a person is consuming. So usually when people are not losing weight, but they've cleaned up their diet or are tracking and they're not seeing progress, it's largely because there's some things that they're not accounting for.
Yeah, it's like hidden sugar, hidden, like even when it's written not sugar, but they put their glucose or some syrups like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, corn or something else, and yeah, it's not sugar, but in reality,
Yeah, before I became a nutritionist and personal trainer, I used to work in an office as a project manager, and in our kitchen there was the coffee mate like creamer pumps, and people, people would just be like squirt, 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 and I was guilty of this too. And then if you like actually stop and look at the nutrition label, you'll see like one squirt has like 25 calories, and to like get a squirt, it's like actually like half a pump.
yeah,
So if like you're pump full pumps, you're getting like 200 plus calories just from that in your coffee. And people will have more than one coffee generally. So it's just like those things that you're not paying attention to, they could be really and I know it's like there's no way that
yeah.
6 pumps of whatever that I put into my coffee is going to make a difference, but it can add up.
Yeah.
Or yeah, or frappuccino from Starbucks has
Oh,
probably
exactly,
more
like 200
calories,
plus calories. Yeah.
yeah, than lunch. Yeah, and what else can you add regarding like very common mistakes when we are trying to lose weight? So, like for example, hidden sugar, like in sauces, in beverages, or even not hidden. When people want to achieve their results ASAP, and what can you add to this list?
So I'm actually going to go in a different direction opposed to food and talk about movement. So I think a lot of people think that like they have to do like as long as they get to the gym and lift weights that they're going to see results. Whereas like or go run on the treadmill for like 30 minutes and or get on the stairmaster and for 30 minutes and that's going to result in weight. When it comes to the amount of energy that the body burns, about 75% of the energy that everybody burns in a day is from their basal metabolic rate, BMR. It's basically a human being's basic needs for survival. If you were just to lay in bed and stare at the ceiling for 24 hours, not doing much, that's the amount of energy you need in a day just to survive and not change your weight. Then there is something called EAT, which is exercise activity thermogenesis. It's the amount of energy that your body burns while exercising. It's about 5% of your day, like tops. So it's not going to make a huge difference in your day. Then there's the thermogenic effect of food, which is about like 5 to 10%. So it's just the amount of energy your body burns just digesting food. And then there's NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which makes up about 10 to 15% of your day. So most people, especially in today's world, in a very sedentary life, walking is going to make a much bigger impact on your weight loss than going to the gym and lifting weights. And I'm not saying lifting weights is not necessary. Super important for skeletal muscle and other aspects of health, and avoiding osteopenia or osteoporosis, improving your quality of life so you can still pick things up, move through space, go through downstairs, climb upstairs. But in terms of fat loss, weight loss, moving consistently throughout your day is super important. Like if you have to get somewhere and you have or can make the time, walk.
Yeah.
Just move. Like there's a general consensus where like people should walk 10,000 steps a day. And that came out of, forget, I would need to double check this, but I'm pretty sure that was like a prescribed number based off a study that came out of Japan. So it's not like hard, fast line that everybody should be walking 10,000 steps, but I still think it's a great mark or like baseline that people should try to set, because the more you walk, like I said, the more energy you're going to produce, the easier it's going to be to lose weight. Like I can pull up my, I have an Oura ring just to track all my
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh wow.
And yesterday I worked out and I burned maybe like 200 calories from my workout, but in total, my caloric burn was 1,200 calories. And 1,000 of those calories was just because I walked so much yesterday. I walked almost 12 and a half miles yesterday. Just like throughout my day, I had a couple of appointments with things, so I walked to them. I also feel like being a, not just a coach, but like I'm creating content too, and trying to think of new ways to market to clients is like, I feel like I'm my most creative when I'm moving. So like I'll go walk, or I'll hop on a stationary bike and just bike and like notes and think things through or do work. So I think if you can find ways in your day to move more, whether it's like get an under desk treadmill. Yeah, I know it's like a big investment up front, but if you have the ability to buy an under desk treadmill or a desk that you can stand at, like the downstream investment that you're making on your life is huge. So I think just getting out of the like diet framework of weight loss, I think making sure that you're moving your body as much as you can is going to make a much larger impact on your weight loss journey, fat loss journey, than going to the gym and doing like an
that's a
hour
good
workout.
point. Do you have a personal mark of steps, daily steps that you're aiming for?
I always shoot for 10.
Okay.
I often go over, but maybe on a Sunday or Saturday when I'm like, it's been a long week and I'm kind of tired, I always like will try to get 10, whether it's not like my fiance and our dog go for a long walk at the end of the day. Just trying to get 10 is my baseline.
Yeah, and Noah, is there a way to trick our metabolism so we could burn more calories by default?
So I need to do a little bit more reading on this, but I think there's a couple studies that have come out saying that if you wear a weight vest or like a weighted backpack or something like that throughout your day, quite often, and do some of your cardio or weight loss wearing a weight vest, there's a certain point where your body will feel like you are at a heavier weight point. So moving, I mean, obviously, if you're walking with a weight vest, you're going to burn more calories than not. But moments when you don't have that weight vest on, you will burn more calories. But in essence, there's not really a way to trick your body beyond that, to my knowledge, to burn more calories.
Very interesting. It's like right now, like I'm going to a German school every single work day, and we have extreme heavy books, 2 books plus to take notes, like something else, like water, snacks, and something. Like I have huge backpack, like at school every day.
Yeah, so like
you're
doing it.
Yes. I could like start like a scientific experience like at the beginning of my class, like in the middle of February, like to measure like my body like measurements, like burning calories.
That'd be actually really interesting, because how people test your BMR or RMR, resting metabolic rate, it's kind of the same thing. Is a breath. I think you breathe for like 5 minutes through a tube, and they just I don't know the exact details of how it works, but they basically like measure the amount of something in your oxygen that you're expelling in carbon dioxide, to see how much your resting metabolic rate is. So it'd be interesting if you got it done now, and then after a couple of months of school and carrying those backpacks, tested it again just to see if it's higher.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Another way is like putting on more muscle mass. Now, to be honest, the amount of muscle mass that you'd need to put on to make like an astronomical difference would be astronomical. So for most people, like putting on a couple pounds of muscle here and there is not going to make a huge difference within the amount of energy their body outputs. Because like a person that weighs 180 pounds is like 25% body fat, versus a person that weighs 180 pounds, it's 10% body fat. Like that 180 person's resting metabolic rate is going to be higher because they just have more muscle mass and less fat mass. So you can weigh the same amount, but having a different body composition can elicit more energy burned at rest. So those are the best ways in my mind. But in reality, there's not really a way to trick your body into burning more.
It's smart enough.
Yeah.
I was reading regarding this metabolism and the effect of cardio on metabolism. And actually, I read that when you're doing a lot of activities, cardio, running, like whatever, that increase your heart rate, your body adapts to these activities, and it become very frugal with spending your calories, and it become
So
harder and harder to lose them.
yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up because there's something metabolic adaptation. We're all metabolically adapted at some point, and all that means is that like our bodies don't want to lose weight. It's only like a very recent thing in history that people are trying to like look a certain way or lose weight. Like this is not a problem for the most part that most of human history that we've had to deal with. So I think the best way to describe it is that there's a survey done where they analyzed like the average Western person's metabolic rate versus an indigenous endurance hunting tribe in Africa and tried to see like how their metabolic rates differed. And all things equal, they were the same. Because you would assume that indigenous tribes, people that are endurance hunting, running 12 plus miles a day to, kill an animal to bring it back to the tribe to eat, would be burning more calories. But if those people needed 9,000 plus calories a day to survive, they die. There's no way they're getting enough food and energy from their ecosystem to eat 9,000 calories. So their bodies have recognized this is the amount of energy we're given. So we have to be extremely efficient with the energy that we're being given. So they slow their metabolic rate down. When people like if a person's 200 pounds and they need 3,000 calories to maintain their weight, they drop down to 180 pounds, they're going to need less calories to maintain 180 pounds. So the less weight you have in your body, the less energy you need. But a lot of people have a really hard time losing weight when they've done yo-yo dieting. So they've tried a bunch of different diets. So like, let's say someone's 250 pounds, they go on this crash diet that's miserable. They're not eating anything. They're starving themselves and they lose 50 to 100 pounds. So they've gotten down to their goal weight. What now? They haven't learned how to achieve this weight in a sustainable manner. So they probably will start eating the same way or falling back into those bad habits because anyone can suffer for a period of time. Anybody can suffer for a period of time. But the hard part is maintaining that weight. So, when you drop weight, your body will continue to drop weight until you reach a new level of homeostasis where your body will not lose weight. So when you're at that new weight loss, your metabolic rate is much lower. So when people instantly go back to the way they were eating, that is why people often gain all their weight back very quickly and more because their threshold and their metabolism is lower. So with many of my, or not with many, but a good portion of my clients that come to me that want to lose weight, I'll calculate the amount of energy they're doing. We'll track their calories. And I was just talking to someone yesterday that, he's a pretty big guy, a client of mine. We just started this week. And he's, like 260, and his resting metabolic rate is around 1,800 calories, or I think, no, it's 1,900 calories. He's only eating 1,700 calories a day.
Only
17.
He's not even hitting his basic needs for like to feel good. So his body has I keep hitting my microphone. His body has adapted to that 1,700 calories and it's not losing weight. So in order for him to lose weight, he needs to eat even less, which is going to be miserable. If he has to eat 1,200 calories at a 6 foot, 260 pound man, like that's going to be awful. So the steps that I take with my clients is taking time to get them back up to the amount of calories that they should be eating. Adapting their metabolism to that. So sometimes it takes time, a couple of weeks, depending on how large the deficit is. And then once their body gets used to that new baseline, it makes fat loss way easier because you can actually eat more and still lose weight, which is like a dream come true, right? You're like, it's like, I can eat more and still lose weight.
Yeah.
Yes, it is very possible. I had another client of mine who has ulcerative colitis like me. He wanted to lose 10 pounds or 15 pounds, and he's already 10 pounds down after 2 months, and he's only just eat more. He's eaten more over the course of this period of time, and he still has lost weight. And that's because we've just got his metabolism working harder, working more, speeding it up. So I guess, Dimitro, to answer your question, actually back to like, is there a way to trick your body into burning more calories? In this situation, yes. Like if you're chronically under eating and not providing your body the nutrients and energy that it needs, then it's going to reach a new homeostasis, adapt so it doesn't lose any more weight. So if you can slowly, incrementally increase your calories to the amount that you need, your body is just going to, your metabolism start working, and you're probably just going to be eating better. So a lot of my clients actually experience weight loss when they start to eat more because they've been chronically under eating for such a long time.
Yeah, but
So
right?
Say it again.
I was saying that cortisol was pumping nonstop, like they were just living on cortisol. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean that goes into like hormones is like really complicated. And I'll admit, like, my level of expertise is not yet in hormones. I actually got a certification and test to get hormone certified. I just have not had the time to get it done. But I know, cortisol, the stress hormone, if you're in a chronically stressed state, high levels of cortisol, that can greatly affect your ability to lose weight. And then we live in a time where we always have a slow drip of cortisol going on. Like, I mean, in the old days when we were just hunter-gatherers, like most of the time, we wouldn't be that stressed. Like maybe if we encountered some kind of like really scary predator, or if you're on a hunt or in battle or something, or fighting other people, like you're going to feel stressed. But for most of the time, you're not stressed. But with everything that's going on in the world, always being connected to our phones, always hearing bad news, hearing traffic, always stressed about work, like we all have a slow cortisol drip. And if you don't have great stress management techniques to get through it, high levels of cortisol can greatly affect your ability to lose weight.
Yeah, and Noah, getting back to metabolism, I just want to add one question. So, in order to speed it up, you have to gradually increase the amount of calories you are taking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, by how many calories you have to increase it, and in what period of time? Like, let's say, 100 calories a week or 100 calories a day.
Great question. It depends on how large the deficit is. So, like, for example, for me, I just went through a fat loss phase where I lost 10 pounds. And the difference in between how much I was eating and how much I needed to eat for maintenance was like 400 calories. So I just jumped up the 400 calories, experienced like a tad bit of weight gain, but then it all evened out. For my client that I was just talking about that has like 1,000 calorie difference, I'll take time. We'll spend about a week to 10 days, every 7 to 10 days, upping your calories by 100 to 200 calories until we get to that new set point. Because when I was talking about how like people that do a crash diet lose a lot of weight and then go back to the way they're eating, they'll gain weight back and more. We want to minimize the amount of fat mass gained by increasing your calories, especially with my clients. It's extremely sensitive. Like, they want to lose weight. If I tell them to start eating more and they jump on the scale and they're like 10 pounds heavier, like that's not a good feeling for them. It's not a good feeling for me, because you just want to provide wins for your clients, and just make them feel good. There's obviously going to be some uncomfortable spots along the road, but largely just setting themselves up for success. So what I would recommend is, like, if you've got a deficit larger than 400 calories, 500 calories, increase your energy that you're increase the energy that you're consuming by 100 to 200 calories every 7 to 10 days. I was going to say this, actually, back to hormones and cortisol. Cortisol also makes you crave sweet and fatty foods. So if you're constantly stressed and tired, you're more likely to make worse decisions when it comes to your diet. and there is some evidence showing that a lot of evidence showing that insulin, which is produced by the pancreas, which helps deal with which is released when we consume carbohydrates and glucose. Stress can make your body more insulin resistant, which is when cells don't properly respond to glucose that's put in your body. So you'll have a higher level of sugar in your blood. So your AC1 levels. So, being chronically stressed can affect how your body releases insulin and deals with carbohydrates that are coming into your body, and, make you crave sweet and fatty foods, which makes fat loss even harder. If your body's not able to utilize the carbohydrates you're consuming, and if you're obviously craving those types of foods. So it's like a nasty cycle. Like, you're stressed, you're tired, you're more likely to consume processed, high carb, high fatty foods. And then when you eat that, you're stressed, you become more insulin resistant, and your body doesn't know what to do and can't effectively use the carbohydrates in your blood. And I think that's why carbs get such a bad rap, because like the insulin-based model of fat loss, because while it is really bad if you have high blood sugar levels chronically, I mean, that's what leads to diabetes type 2, amongst other things. But stress is bad. Stress is a killer. Stress is a silent killer. Like, for me and my disease, whenever I'm chronically stressed, I go into a flare. So it's like,
As
if you
everyone,
have, as
everyone
everyone,
goes and have flare-ups.
exactly. I'm sure when you were dealing with your acne, when you were stressed, it always got worse.
It is. I got the worst skin condition when I had nervous breakdown.
Exactly. So
Yes.
I think just having stress management techniques, whether it's talking to a therapist, being part of a community, talking to friends, sleep. I have a journal that I'll write notes in. I think having a framework around how to look at the world is really important. But the best advice I could give anybody for stress management techniques is just to recognize the only thing that you have control over is how you respond to situations.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
And that's very freeing, because I think so much of stress and anxiety comes from trying to control others or control other situations. So you just let that go and recognize that you can't even control sometimes what your body does, but all you can control is how I'm going to address the situation and react to the situation.
Exactly, because our body is the only thing we own in this world. If you think so. Yeah.
Exactly.
And no, we started already talk about muscle gain, and so there are for sure many principles how to gain muscles correctly. And for example, as you mentioned at the beginning, usually you gain weight, so it's not a thing to be stressed about. What else would you add to this list? And is there any difference between women and men to gain muscles?
So the basis of gaining muscle is that you need to be weightlifting, doing some kind of progressive overload program. And all progressive overload means, and it's the basic principle of all fitness programs, is that here, I'm gonna actually shift the light right in my eye. There we go, much better. Basic principle of all training programs is progressive overload, is which is week to week you just make it a little bit more difficult. The story of Midas's bowl is a famous one that describes it as a young guy, a boy had a bowl calf, and every day he would pick it up and put it down. And as that bowl got bigger, and as he got bigger, he got stronger, and eventually he was able to pick up a full-grown bull, which unlikely that a grown person was able to pick up a giant bull. But the principle is there is the reason he got stronger is because every time he made it a little bit more difficult. So really important in a muscle, any program, but specifically around gaining muscle, you want to make sure you're in a progressive overload. And then you need to be in a caloric surplus.
Is it possible to gain correctly muscles without a personal trainer?
Yeah. I think that for most people that are, just starting, I think that there's a lot of value in working with a professional trainer if you're just starting, just to make sure your form is correct and you don't injure yourself. But for most people, I think that there are enough programs out there, whether it's, going to a class or YouTube videos or like programs in magazines. Gosh, I don't even know if I just remember when I was a kid, there was like bodybuilding programs and all these magazines in Men's Health. But in terms of like how important it is to train with a professional, it's not necessary. Like as long as you are following a great program and eating in a surplus, you will put on muscle mass. In terms of how different it is for women, I mean, women are a little bit more complicated because of the menstrual cycle. There's a lot more hormones going on into the system. But in principle, as long as you are in a slight caloric surplus and you are lifting weights, you will put on some lean muscle mass. I also want to address the fact that I think a lot of people think putting on muscle is a lot easier than most. Like a lot of my clients or women in general will say, like, I don't want to get bulky, so I don't lift. It is very hard to put on muscle mass. So I think just also recognizing how important it is to lift heavy weights, and heavy can be relative. It's like
Yes.
for me or for you guys, like it could be a heavy loaded barbell, whereas like someone that's just getting into weightlifting or someone that's 90 years old, getting up and out of your chair a few times is heavy lifting for you. So it's all relative. But in terms of the gain muscle, you need to be progressive overload program, lifting weights, doing resistance training, and being in a slight caloric surplus at least.
Yeah, and talking about progressive overload, what if you don't do progressive overload, but let's say you stick to a specific level of overload? Let's say it's just you're lifting or you're doing 10 push-ups, but every day without any progression. Is it sustainable?
Something is better than nothing. But at a certain point, like that 10 is going to be easy, and it's more of just going to be maintenance than anything.
Mm-hmm.
It
So,
will be
like,
probably like a stretching
say it again.
afterwards. Like it will be like just physical, easy activity for you later
Exactly.
afterwards. Not
Yeah.
Exactly. Just like adapting your metabolism, your body's going to get adapted to certain levels of physical activity. So, like that 10 push-ups eventually will feel easy. So I would say like maybe in this example, like do 10 push-ups every day for a week. Next week, do 12 push-ups every day for the week. Next week, do 14.
Yeah.
Just make sure you're making your program a little bit more difficult. Some weeks you're not going to feel as great and you won't be able to lift heavier, and maybe you won't be able to even lift the weight you were lifting the week prior. But it's like, are you stressed? Did you not sleep well? Have you not eaten enough? But overall, just make sure you're making each of your workouts a little bit more difficult. It doesn't need to be astronomical, and you don't also need to crush your soul every workout. Like you don't need to be crawling out of the gym, nor should you actually most of the time be crawling out of the gym, sweating on the verge of vomiting. And I think that's actually a really bad thing that has come out recently. Like everyone is like, oh, I want to vomit, or I want to like feel like I'm dying. It's like or I want to be so sore I can barely walk. And I'm just like, there's not a lot of value in that. Like, yeah, it feels, you accomplished something, but like, if you're so sore that you can't move from a couple days, you overdid it. Like a healthy amount of soreness is like, oh, I'm a little sore. You reach for this water bottle, like, oh, it's like, oh, I'm a little sore. But anything more than that, like if you're struggling to walk or sit down in a chair, like, you overdid it.
I know, like the situations when, like, after overdoing sports, like people got temperatures, like their body it was like in inflammation. They got like temperature, body temperature increased, and like then they got like sick, even like after overdoing sports.
Exactly. So like, acute stress, like a workout, is really great for the immune system. But if you are overdoing it constantly and you're chronically stressed, your body's never going to have a chance to recover. Your immune system is going to be affected, and it's just going to make recovering and being effective against certain like viruses or pathogens or bacteria that could be making you sick. Your immune system's not going to be as effective at fighting those things off.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like
Yeah.
I'm definitely agree with that you have to have like some balance of recovery and training,
Mhm.
not to get out of the gym like you're dying. It's important. Like I'm not doing this as well. But recently I was listening a lot to Kobe O'Brien
Mhm.
and how he used to train. And for me, it sounded crazy because for 20 years he said like he was sleeping like maybe 3 4 hours a day and training like for 8 hours. And I just couldn't imagine how he could make it sustainable for so long.
I mean, that Mamba mentality, man.
Yeah,
I mean, granted, there are genetic freaks. Like there are people that don't that are like predisposed to just be animals, just monsters. Uh, Kobe Bryant also had like an extreme mentality. Um, I think we also have to recognize too that like people like him in that situation are multimillionaires making corporations hundreds of millions of dollars. So his ability to recover, like the resources and tools that he has available to him, are a lot higher than people like us, or most people in the world. So I think we also have to recognize that he has access to doctors, professionals, treatments that are probably helping him recover more so than others.
Yeah, and regarding recovering, like what are the best foods and supplements for the muscle growth? And for me, it's also interesting what you're going to answer because, like, some supplements or additives that help to grow our muscles, they can actually have many negative side effects. For
Yeah.
example, many bodybuilders, they have acne, a lot of acne. Maybe you can share some sustainable options.
Yeah. The number one best thing anybody can do for fat loss, muscle gain, improving your health, recovery, sleep. Sleep. Sleep, 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 sleep enough. Like
Yeah,
I am guilty of this. I don't sleep enough.
we all.
We all are, right? But sleep is the opportunity for your body to rest and recover. Super important for all aspects of health. Now, when it comes to the best foods for whether it's like weight gain, like fat loss, like I'm just going to say like best foods for anything, whole foods, sticking to that perimeter of the grocery store, meats, meats, eggs, dairy products, vegetables, fruit, um, things like sweet potatoes, white rice, like those are going to be the best foods that you can consume. Fish. Um, in terms of supplements, most supplements are like you don't need them. I think most people look to supplements as a means to, it's like a shortcut. But there's no such thing as a shortcut without consequences.
mm,
So a lot of supplements, I think, are the consequences is like you're spending money where you don't need to.
Yes.
But there can also be like a lot of negative side effects down the road. But it's much easier. I think I'll say like I think there's really just 3 supplements that people should be taking, if anything. Number one, creatine monohydrate.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most studied supplement out there. Does so many things for you.
For
Um,
example.
Performance, like basically how the metabolic system works is that ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Basically, how our body generates energy. So there's a chemical reaction that turns ATP into ADP, adenine diphosphate, which just means there's 2 phosphates connected to adenosine. And that chemical reaction allows us to create energy in our body. Creatinine phosphate is what then attaches a new phosphate to ADP
Mm-hmm.
to recreate ATP. So creatine is one of the largest chemical compounds in our body that we produce. But if you take extra, it just helps with performance because you have more creatine to bind to phosphate to then improve your performance, recover more quickly in between sets, generate more energy. There's also a lot of some science and studies saying that it actually can help with depression. It can help with your gut health, can help with recovery. So creatine monohydrate, 5 grams a day, something that everybody should be taking just to feel better.
When should we take it? Like during the
Doesn't
workout?
matter. Doesn't
Okay.
matter. I take it in the morning. I've realized that as I grow older, I revert back into a more childlike state when it comes to supplements. So I have creatine gummies that I take because it's easy instead of a
Mm-hmm.
powder. But there's pills, there's powders that are great that you can use. Second supplement that I recommend for everybody is vitamin D. No one gets enough vitamin D. Most of us spend so much time. I mean, I'm embarrassed by how pale my skin looks in this on this camera. But most people don't get enough vitamin D from the sun. So I think taking a vitamin D supplement is extremely important for immune system health.
Yeah, true.
Second or third supplement that everyone should be taking is just a protein supplement, whether it's like a whey isolate protein powder, an egg white protein powder, a vegan protein powder. There's a lot of different products on the market that you can find that will work well with your body, whether like you don't process whey well or you don't do vegan well. Like I myself use a egg white protein powder. It's just, I've noticed it's just super easy on my gut. It makes me feel great. And most people have a really hard time consuming enough protein from whole foods. So I think then using a protein supplement is really important for people to get the amount of protein that they need. So most supplements are useless. The three that you should be using is creatine monohydrate, vitamin D, and protein supplementation.
And regarding creatine, like I have a question. For example, is it for people who just want to gain like muscle weight, or doesn't matter?
Anybody should be taking it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Just does sports, like, right?
I mean, if you are physically active, definitely should be taking it. If you're not physically active, you could still be taking it at lower doses because it helps with. It's supposed to help with cognitive performance, and I think last time I checked, it's also supposed to help like mitigate against like things like neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's or dementia. So there's application for anybody depending on who you are, how active you are, whether you're trying to lose fat, gain muscle, etc.
Interesting. Like I have never taken this supplement in my life. Now I started thinking maybe I need it.
I mean, I think for most, you're not going to like feel a change, but it might be small things that you're like, oh, that was easier, that was different, or like, oh, I feel like I'm thinking better, or I'm just holistically feeling better. I think that, I mean, it's the safest. I mean, if you have liver problems, don't take it. But if you don't, you're probably fine to take it. It's very, some people it doesn't agree with, but largely it is a very effective and safe supplement to use.
And do you take collagen, for example, to recover like bones, like to get more liquid into the bones?
Sometimes I'll use collagen, but it's not like a normal thing that I'll use. If I'm dealing with like a sprain or like a ligament or tendon issue, I'll probably supplement with collagen while I'm in my healing process. But collagen is a great protein that is great at helping heal and facilitate non-skeletal muscle tissue. So like skin, hair, nails, tendons and ligaments of that nature. I think collagen is a very useful supplement, but it's not necessary.
Yeah.
If you're eating a lot of animal products, you're probably getting enough collagen from those products.
If you're
not.
If you are vegan or vegetarian, collagen is probably a worthwhile supplement to take.
But can you get it from fish?
Yes, but I'm pretty sure it's minuscule amounts compared to like chicken or beef or pork. I think just fish have far less connective tissue than any of those other animals.
Yeah, got it. Can you explain the concept of muscle memory and its impact on training after a break?
Yes. So I think the best way to think about muscle memory is just like muscle memory is the ability to perform a motor task more easily after practice. So, the best way to think about it is like you do something, it becomes easier. becomes easier. Like us writing is a form of muscle memory. Like we don't have to think about it very much. We just write. Or it's the ability to regain muscle mass, which is like what is based off of what the question you asked. So as your muscles are trained, as you try to grow muscles, the number of muscle fiber nuclei in your body expand. They're also called myonuclei, which can increase the size of your muscle mass. So that's when you train and lift weights and grow muscle, it's because you are gaining more muscle fiber nuclei. When the muscle shrinks, like say you take a break, you get injured, etc., the same number of myonuclei or muscle fiber nuclei are still there. So that's why if you get back into lifting, you may see size, strength increase more rapidly than someone that doesn't, because you have more muscle fiber nuclei. But more studies need to be done to see like how long those increased muscle fiber nuclei last in the body. I think if a couple months, they're probably still there, but more studies need to be done to see like how long after training, after taking a break, those increased muscle fiber nuclei exist in your body. So to explain the concept, it's just because when you grow muscles, you have more muscle fiber nuclei.
Is it like predisposed genetically? Because like I see that some people just can have extreme long breaks and then they're still fit, and now like you have 1 week break and you need to get like everything from the beginning.
Yeah, I think that yes, there will always be people that are genetically predisposed to something. But I also think that if you are living a very healthy lifestyle and largely for an extended period of time, it's going to be much easier to bounce back than others.
Yeah, it's like for women, what I know from my girlfriends, what they say, for example, if a woman is on her period, so very often women take breaks during like this time for a week not to work out, and then it feels like you need to start from the beginning with your workout journey because your muscles got not so strong enough like after this 1 week break.
I'll say this: like 1 week off is not going to make a change in anything, really. I mean, there's something called cycle syncing when it comes to training.
Yes.
Whereas like you change the type of training you're doing based off what phase of you are in the menstrual cycle. There's not enough literature or studies to say that like actually changing the way you train amongst your menstrual cycle is going to elicit different adaptations. But I'm going to say that with like a grain of salt, because the medical society has really done a large disservice to women, because most of the time when people do scientific studies, it's based around men, because the scientists...
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, in principle, most of the time scientists are lazy, and the menstrual cycle, the amount of hormones that are in women is like another multiple set of variables that are difficult to track. So that's why most scientific studies are applied to men. Now, scientific community is doing a much better job about including women in studies, but so I can't like confidently speak to the fact that like women should be training differently based off like where they are in their cycle. But I think this is a good segue into just like people understanding, listening to their body. Like if you're feeling run down, if you're feeling tired, adjust your workout accordingly. Like you don't need to do the whole workout. You can just like, something is always better than nothing. Like if you're feeling really low energy, you're feeling really just like bloated and gross, like at least getting to the gym, doing lighter weights, maybe doing less reps, like that will help you probably not feel as weak going back into the gym the next week. But a week is such a short period of time, especially if you're someone that has been training for a really long time, that's not going to make a difference. You may feel like more sore than usual the next week, but in general, it's not going to make that much of a difference.
Okay, I will let them know.
But also, like, I will say this, like, I'm a dude, like, I'm not experiencing what you or your girlfriends are experiencing. So, like,
Yeah.
also, like, the way they're feeling is very valid. It just might be, my guess is that they're just a week off. It's just harder to get back into the gym. Like, you take a week off of the gym, whether it's been a habit for years or a couple months, like, it's just inherently going to be harder to get back, and everything's going to feel a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, but you are absolutely right about cycle thinking. It works. It
Oh,
does
it does?
work.
Okay. Well, good. I'm
Yeah, it does
glad that.
work. Yeah, like the amount of energy is so different. So like
Yeah.
the best performance is usually during follicular phase or ovulation. It's like it could be easily proved. Yeah, and like later during luteal phase and menstruations, like something easy peasy, stretching, yoga, Pilates, like without extremes.
Mm-hmm. I think also, I mean, I don't know if this is the case in the education system in Lithuania, or Germany, but I think, I know for a fact most men have no idea what the different cycles are or about the menstrual cycle. And for you guys that are listening that have female partners, learn about the menstrual cycle. Just do your partner a favor and understand it. But I think also a lot of women don't completely understand the menstrual cycle
Yeah.
as well. So I think everybody should really educate themselves on what is going on in the female body, depending on what cycle you're in or phase of the
Yeah.
cycle that you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know that gut health is one of your main areas of expertise, and I wanted to ask why it's so crucial for overall well-being, and how does it impact fat loss and muscle gain?
So I'm going to give some long-winded answers about this. So I'll first by saying, in terms of health, about 80% of your immune system is in your gut. If you think about it, besides skin, the first part of your body that comes into contact with things that we put inside it is your stomach, or your gastrointestinal system. So what you put in your body can have a huge effect on your health. But I want to kind of go over the process of the digestive system, just so people understand what is happening when they consume food. And I'm just going to make it very, very simple. So obviously, it all starts in your mouth when you eat food. Saliva and chewing breaks down your food for digestion. So there's a chemical and mechanical maceration of food.
Mhm.
Tip: you really want to make sure you chew your food, which is going to really help break it down even more, which makes everything down the line digest easier. So I always tell people 20 bites per, like, you want to chew 20 times before you swallow. It also slow down your eating, and you're probably not going to overeat if you do that. Then once you swallow the food, it goes into your esophagus, which is just like a long muscular tube that carries food down to your stomach. Food will then enter into your stomach, which kind of acts as a storage tank for food to break down large amounts of food. So a mixer, it's a grinder, there's chemical and physical maceration that's going on to break down the food. So it uses hydrochloric acid and enzymes to break down your food into what is called chyme. A lot of harmful bacteria in your food can be destroyed here in your gut. After that, it goes into the small intestine. While the liver and gallbladder and pancreas are not technically parts of the digestive system, they release a lot of very important chemicals and hormones that help your digestive system work. So, like, the liver produces bile, which goes into the large intestines to help break down your food, your chyme more. So it releases enzymes that break down a lot of fat and fatty acids. Your liver also cleans and purifies its blood before entering into the small intestine. So once nutrients are absorbed within your small intestine, the blood goes into the bloodstream and is purified by the liver again. The liver also stores amino acids, which are proteins that help with a lot of body functions. It also helps synthesize and create lipids and cholesterol, and also can hold excess glucose in the form of glycogen, which is important for your, like, excess reserves for your body. The gallbladder stores excess bile that the liver produces, so it's just like an extra resource for more bile to help digest. pancreas is really important. We talked about it earlier because it releases insulin. So it creates and spits out a lot of enzymes that allow our body to digest food. So once your food is in the small intestine, the chyme arrives in the small intestine and turns into like an even more acidic solution. And it's continued to be broken down. And this is where about like 90% of your nutrients from food are absorbed in your small intestine. After the small intestine, it moves into your large intestine. This is where some nutrient absorption happens. It's like a lot of fat-soluble vitamins and minerals. But this is where a lot of your water and electrolytes are consumed or absorbed into your body. There's a lot of bacteria throughout this whole process, your flora or probiotics that occur in the colon and throughout your whole system that are really important that I'll get into in a sec. But everything that's left over comes out of your anus and is poop. It takes about 36 hours for the full cycle for like food that you put into your mouth to come out the other side.
36 hours.
Not always, but in general, if your digestion is good, it'll take about 36 hours.
Interesting. I've never heard.
And so it's very important what you put into your body. It can, and what your poop looks like can tell a story about what you're putting on your body and how healthy your digestive system is. I hate this analogy because for a lot of people it ruins frozen yogurt or soft serve ice cream, but your poop should look like a soft serve ice cream or like a frozen yogurt, like a swirl, like a kind of like a not loose, but like a snake-like soft consistency. So if you've got any other a stool that this presents differently than that, you should address like something's going on in your gut.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have normalized being constipated or having diarrhea. Like, oh, I have it every day. And I'm like, well, that's like, I had a client that I had worked for a while that had diarrhea every day for 10 years. And finally he didn't have diarrhea. And he just was like, it was the normal. And I was like, but it's not normal. Like, you shouldn't have to have diarrhea every day. So just changing a couple things around his diet. He's, finally having normal stools, and his quality of life is going to be much better.
It's like because people are still extremely ashamed to talk about this topic, like constipation or diarrhea. So but people like to comment on that topic on Instagram or TikTok, like what I see. So nobody talks with each other, but people comment. And sometimes I like reading the comments and people say, oh yeah, I go to the bathroom like once per week, 4 times, like once in 4 days, once in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
I'm like, how are you still alive?
Yeah. Let's normalize talking about poop and how to make it healthy. But gut health is so crucial because, for the reasons alone that we've already talked about, but also there's something called the enteric nervous system, which is kind of like we've all heard about like how the gut is a second brain. So the enteric nervous system is how your brain and your stomach, I keep hitting it again, intersect. So like, I think when people think about that gut feeling, like that's a real thing that you should probably pay attention to. But the gut is everything. Some signs of an unhealthy gut is like you shouldn't always be bloated or have diarrhea. You should, like you said, you shouldn't only go to the bathroom once every few days. You have bad skin, and we already kind of talked about what if your poop is like. But if you're chronically sick, if you have bad skin, if you have aches and pain, a lot of this stuff can be influenced by your gut health.
Yeah, and talking about food and diversity, how important diversity is in your nutrition. Let's say if you eat good food, meat, dairy, vegetables, fruits, but you eat the same thing every day. Is it good or bad?
If you're eating the same thing every day and it's mostly like whole food, nutrient dense foods, like you're probably fine. We live in a world where most people have access to like all different types of vegetables. I think though, like, variety is a spice of life, and variety, like different vegetables, different fruits are going to have different levels of micronutrients that are great for health. So I think eat the rainbow. Like,
Great.
eat the rainbow when it comes to vegetables and fruits. Eat as much variability as you can, given like what season, what is going to be good produce, and you do want to switch up the type of protein that you're consuming. Like, not everybody, you shouldn't be eating red meat every day. Probably once or twice a week is okay, but saturated fat is not good for your cardiovascular health. I think that, sadly, because of how large the carnivore diet is, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of people having heart attacks or having some kind of cardiovascular disease illicit because of the amount of saturated fat they're consuming. It'd be actually really interesting to see if heart attacks increase over the next couple of years because of it. But so to answer your question, like, if you're eating chicken, fish, meat, like on a cycle basis, changing up your vegetables, like, that is the goal. But if you're eating like broccoli, rice, chicken every day, like, you're kind of robbing your body the opportunity to get a lot of micronutrients, vitamins, minerals from other sources. So I think for most people probably aren't eating enough whole nutrient dense foods. Like, most people's diets are processed foods primarily. So if you just first focus on eating better, that's the main focus. If you're already eating better, providing your body with different types of, like, different vegetables, different fruits is going to be a way that you can, improve your quality of life and improve your health even more.
Yeah,
I have a question. So, like you said regarding like the red meat, that it's interesting if the amount of heart diseases will increase or not. Like right now, I think like analyzing from the European market how people consume food. So there are so many vegans, vegetarians. I used to be vegan and vegetarian by myself, and like the amount just it's not declining, definitely. Like,
Yeah.
people don't eat meat, lots of people here. But do you like say that because of your own experience with your clients that more people are eating red meat, or how is that?
It's mostly what I see on Instagram or
Oh, okay.
TikTok and stuff like that. A lot of my clients are doing mostly red meat, mostly because I advise just to, like, you want to have a variety in your diet. I think that veganism, vegetarianism, like, there's never been a time, like, an easier time to be vegan or vegetarian. There's so many great products on the market nowadays. But yeah, but I think that, I think that the population that is eating a lot of red meat is probably, like, not significant amount of people, but I think it's probably mostly like young men that are, like, jumping on this carnivore diet trend that is very popular. Well, you'll see most of these people eating off giant wooden cutting boards with, like, meat, eggs, avocado, and stuff. I think that to answer your question, Maria, most of my clients don't struggle with over consuming red meat. But I hopefully answered your question.
Yes,
Okay.
you did. Yeah, you did. Like,
yeah.
I also
Yeah. Go ahead, Maria.
I just wanted to comment that, like, I also see like the obsession of eating raw red meat or raw meat. Like, people can get obsessed in so many different ways.
I mean, humans are largely tribal creatures. We like to be a part of a community. But I think diet culture is awful. I think that people, it's almost like what your diet is describes. It's become a religion to a degree, whereas, like, people are very adamant about, like, well, if you're not eating this way, you're doing it wrong, or, like, you're gonna die. It's like, what is more important for long-term sustained health, or long-term health, is just, like, finding a way to eat that is sustainable, something you can do for the rest of your life. I don't know if you guys have heard of blue zones, but
Yes.
blue zone is for listeners that may not know what it is. It's where it's got the highest density of centennials that are live. So all that means is like it's got the highest concentration of people that live past 100. It's known to be like the places with the healthiest people in the world. These people don't follow. I mean, they mostly follow a Mediterranean style diet, which is arguably the most proven and best diet for you. But they also eat everything. They don't cut
Yeah.
everything out. The quality of the food is mostly locally grown ingredients without, large scale factory farming or, meat farming that is going on where they're pumping all these animals with hormones or antibiotics and on the agriculture side, pesticides, etc. Um, you can be very healthy eating a well-balanced diet. For a lot of people, that are vegan or vegetarian, like you probably should only be doing that for ecological reasons or whether religious reasons. It's not inherently more healthy than a diet that includes meat or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have nothing against meat, but I don't eat it. But I believe like when you eat meat, grass-fed meat, like from farm, it's okay. But when it's just meat from stores, when it's being grown on some factories, probably it's not the best way to go for,
Yeah,
right?
your quality of food is really important. I think a bad thing about health is like how these better ingredients, there's a barrier at entry. They're obviously more expensive. So most people can't afford like grass-fed beef. I mean, shit's expensive.
Yeah.
It's like it can be up to like $35 here in the States. It can be like up to $35 a pound, which most people, including myself, I was like, I don't really want to spend that on a weekly basis. That's expensive. For most people, I think eating just like grocery store meat is good enough. I think like if you can afford something that's higher quality and it's not going to break the bank, you should.
Mhm.
But like in general, just focusing on eating whole nutrient dense foods is going to be better. Like arguably better than any processed food that you could find on the shelf.
And Dmitry, I remember, so you started an experiment by consuming extremely expensive olive oil, right? Did you
Yeah,
see any changes?
actually, I don't see any difference, guys. I wish I could
No.
see it, but I was buying relatively good quality olive oil. Like one
Yeah.
bottle, like 0.5 liters, is maybe 40 euros or something. And I was just drinking it every morning, 20 minutes before my breakfast. And I cannot say if I feel better or not. Like maybe on the inside, maybe it's getting some benefits for sure, but I cannot feel it.
Yeah, I can't speak to like how different at price points how olive oil or different types of oil would be better for you, but I do know that um, most olive oils, like on the cheaper end, um, are not fully olive oil. It's
Yeah.
mainly olive oil mixed with a bunch of different types of oil. Um, but I think olive oil can also go bad, especially if it's in like plastic and it sits out in the sun. So I think there's a
Mhm.
lot of there's I think probably mid range olive oil is just like going to be your best bet for health if you can't afford the higher range. But I honestly can't speak or have enough knowledge about like the different types of olive oils that you should be consuming.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, also one thing to add, I remember I was reading in one book, it's Ikigai, and they were talking about the one village where people has very high longevity rate, probably one of the highest in the world. And there was a list of products that they were consuming daily, and don't remember the whole list, but one of them were carrots, tofu, and fish.
Mm-hmm.
These are the three I remember. So I'm eating tofu almost every day. Actually, every day. Sometime 300, 400 grams for a very long time.
Tofu is a great source of protein. And it's a great alternative source of protein. I mean, I think like Okinawa, Japan is one of the places in the world that's a blue zone, and they largely consume tofu, white rice, root vegetables like carrots, and fish.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we covered all the questions, right?
Yeah, Dimitra, but I can add a comment regarding tofu. So, like, tofu contains phytoestrogens, so they cannot duplicate estrogens. And when it's like good quality tofu, like that's like very healthy for female health, but I don't know how it affects male health, like eating it daily, because it's like kind of can affect hormones if it's too much.
To my knowledge, I think that was a myth that was spread about
Really?
tofu. Yeah, to my knowledge, I don't know confidently, but from what I've heard and from what I've read, it
Yeah.
doesn't affect
Down.
it doesn't affect as much. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I guess we covered all the question, and I want to say that it was amazing conversation.
I agree.
Maybe you
Yeah.
could, yeah,
I had a
maybe you could
blast. I
say,
really appreciate you guys inviting me on.
yeah, our pleasure. Maybe you could also say where our listener can find you.
Yeah, Instagram or TikTok. It's just at NS Zimmer. So NSZIMMER. I have a podcast myself. It's called Fat Kid Fit Bod. I haven't recorded any episodes in like a year because I'm rebranding in a little bit, working on that. But if you want to listen to old episodes, they're all on Spotify, Apple Music, Fat Kid Fit Bod. That's where you can find me if your listeners want to hear more.
Sure.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for your knowledge and your time. It was so much fun
Of
to
course,
talk to you.
likewise, guys. I appreciate you
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.